Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to start to look at perspective in space and review all of the activities we're doing connected with them in the classroom. At this point, we've shared different kinds of conversations in the classroom about what makes artwork look different when they start to use the rules of perspective. On the left, we have work from Egypt and medieval times. And then on the right, we have the Renaissance. In class, we talked about all of the ways that these artworks look different once the artist started to understand perspective. Perspective means looking at making things three-dimensional. The Renaissance began in Italy and it spread through Northern Europe. Art and science and literature just started to grow and flourish during this time. Before perspective came around, a lot of artists didn't have much depth in this picture. So when we look at something like this, we really can't see things going back into space. Once perspective came around, we could really trick the viewer's eye into thinking that there was more space on the surface than what there really was. So this is a flat surface, this is a painting, but it looks like there are things going back into space and coming forward. Artists have used a lot of different techniques to show depth. But the first thing that we're going to talk about is linear perspective. This is the illusion of space that artists create using a vanishing point and a horizon line. We also use the lines called orthogonal lines to help us draw things and make them lead back into space. So a vanishing point is that single point on the horizon where all the lines on the ground seem to come together. The horizon line is the place where the land and the sky will meet. And the orthogonal lines, they connect us to the vanishing point. So now that we know what orthogonal lines, horizon lines, and the vanishing point are, we are going to start with creating a little one-point perspective. And then we're going to go into two-point perspective. We're going to talk about your worksheets that you have, your final project. Okay. So together, we're going to work on one-point perspective. We're going to use the horizon line, the vanishing point, and orthogonal lines to create a one-point perspective drawing. So get out your sketchbooks and let's begin. For one-point perspective, you are going to create a straight line with a dot right in the middle. That is our vanishing point. After you create the vanishing point, we're going to start to place a shape somewhere on your page. So I placed these three squares for you. Once you place your shapes, we're going to draw orthogonal lines from each of the corners to the vanishing point. Now we are going to draw the parallels to each of the sides to show how long they will be. So here I am using the same angle to create my parallel lines. Now we're going to add lines along the orthogonals to complete our shapes. Once you erase the orthogonal lines, you can really start to see the way that this creates more space on your page. If you add even more details, you'll be able to see how orthogonal lines can really help you in making things come forward or making things go back into space. And now that we understand horizon lines, vanishing points, and orthogonals, we start to see them everywhere, all around the world. So here's part two vanishing points. Draw a straight line with one on the left and one on the right. And this is going to be called two-point perspective. So our first step is to draw a straight line. We're going to draw the orthogonal lines from both ends of your line to each vanishing point. This is going to show us two sides of one building. Draw a parallel to the corner of your shape that determines how long and wide your shape will be. And now you're going to make those lines darker over the orthogonal lines to complete your shape. Once you erase your orthogonal lines, you can really see how this makes your little sketch on a 2D surface really come to life. Once you add more details using orthogonal lines, you can really start to see things move forward and back into space. So you can create little windows and doorways or sidewalks to this 2-point perspective building. Before we begin to go outside, we have a number of worksheets that you get to choose from. I want you to complete at least 3 perspective worksheets. We're going to do these together with your classmates and make perspective a little bit more of a fun and collaborative experience. Now that you've finished all of the practice materials, we are going to talk about and enjoy some outdoors, talking about forced perspective. So this is a technique that photographers use to make objects look smaller or closer than they really are, or even larger than what they really are. So when we start to look at these examples, you could see that photographers are using objects and messing with the vanishing points. They're messing with orthogonal lines in order to make things look smaller or larger. So once you start to get the idea, you really can start to play with your camera. You can see this guy is messing with the light of a reflection to make it seem like he's holding it within the tweezers. You can use other items. I want you to take any items that you see in the classroom, and we'll take them outside and try this out. You can even use your classmates to create an even more funny and interesting forced perspective. Artists have used forced perspective in a lot of their work, and it creates just something more fun, because sometimes perspective can be a little bit more challenging, but when we look at it in terms of being funny, or when we bring the camera out, it's going to make it a lot more engaging experience. We can also add more things in Photoshop if that is some skill that you already have, or we can kind of share our skills together once we get back into the classroom. So forced perspective is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun outside, laughing and enjoying perspective. So we're going to go outside, we're going to shoot a bunch of forced perspective photographs, and instead of emailing me, this is how I used to do it, you are going to submit them on the Google Classroom page that I've announced in class. Okay, we're on to our final perspective assignment. So this is the big perspective assignment. These are some old class examples. What they did is we started to look at different kind of alleyways and city scenes throughout the city of Chicago, throughout our neighborhoods. And so I have a bunch of photographs of perspectives, 1-point perspectives, that you can use as your resources. What we're going to do is we're going to draw the perspective of the alley. We're going to use those tools that we learned earlier to really bring some more details into a final drawing. You're going to add some graffiti inspired by the artist within the rules of perspective. And you're going to choose a color scheme and add some colors with color pencils. So we're going to go over those images and draw the overall alleyway that you decide you want to use. It's going to be a lot of fun because you're going to be able to add your own kind of ideas to this assignment. Artists, are often inspired by your peers and other visual artists. So look at ways you can take ideas from the graffiti artists we talk about, the colors and patterns, and use them in your design. Our first artist you can choose to incorporate into your work is Swoon. As you can see, Swoon's work really uses a lot of collage and cut-up techniques, but she can be seen all over the world. And she really transforms graffiti into an entire interactive experience. Our next artist is Hebrew Brantley. Hebrew Brantley is from Bronzeville in Chicago, and you can see his work all over Chicago, but he's really expanded into Nike. He's expanded all over the world. When we look at Hebrew Brantley, he starts to create these characters. And he calls these characters little heroes. He wanted to create these heroes for the youth that maybe have struggled with their environment. We're going to talk a little bit more about this in class. We're going to talk about all of the artists in class, but I just want to review the people that you have as options for you in this assignment. So Hebrew Brantley is going to be a really, really engaging artist that you can use in your work. We also have Hector Duarte, Shepard Fairey, J.C. Rivera, Don't Fret, Retina, Pose, and any other graffiti artists that you've maybe come across. A lot of the artists that I have here are ones that you can see throughout Chicago. I think the only artist I haven't seen directly connected to Chicago might be Swoon. So in your sketchbook, choose 3 of the artists and write about their work, their style, and why you want to use them in your work. Print large images to use as references. Then, what you're going to do after you research about this artist and find out all of the information that you want to use for them, you are going to start to add them into your drawing. So as you can see, you start to place their work into your little scene. It's a really inspiring way of using one-point perspective, and I hope this takes out a little bit more fear that you might have with perspective.